Okay, good afternoon. It's uh, it's great to have you here. I know there's still only a few students in the room, and we may be a very small crowd today, but that's okay since this is recorded. I will post this and share this link with everyone, so there should be a much bigger audience than is currently in here. As you know, my name is Professor Volker Janssen. I am your instructor in HSS 200 and director for the Passage of the Future program. And as part of the Passage to the Future program, I am strongly urging students in that program and in HSS generally to look into and participate whenever possible in DC Scholars and or study abroad. The expert on campus, the expert in the college to talk about study abroad and DC Scholars is JC Cover, who's here with us today. He is your go-to person. He's done this for years. He knows all the things that are important about DC Scholars, about study abroad. And if I don't know the answer, he certainly does. So without talking too much into his time, I'm going to allow him to share. Well, I cannot talk. So there you go. I'm going to allow him to share his screen. Let's see that. And so I will have JC take it from here and give us an introduction. Remember, this is just a half hour, so you can't possibly hear it all, but enough to know whether you want to hear more. I think that's the goal here for today. Is that right, JC?
Yes, that would be perfect. Thank you again, Dr. Johnson, and thank you for the invite. Hello, everyone. Once again, my name is JC Cover. I'm the Study Abroad Advisor for the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. Forgive me, I wasn't prepared with the PowerPoint. If it will be okay, I can just talk. And if any of you has any questions, I will put my contact information in the chat, and feel more than welcome to reach out to me during your leisure. So the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, I don't mean to brag, but I will. We are in fact the only college on campus that offers a diverse selection of study abroad programs and study away program, which to include the Cal State DC program, that is available to all majors. So it doesn't matter what your academic background is, you can apply to any of these programs. Another great feature is that we are the only college that offers a semester-long program to London in the spring that has an internship component connected to it. It's very rare to come across a study abroad endeavor where you will take classes and also intern, where a London program will allow you to do that. In the summer now, this is where we get really diverse with our programs. Generally, we will offer anywhere between 4 to 7 programs each summer, and they change year by year. For example, this past summer, we had 4 exciting programs. We had one to Yucatan, Mexico, which was a 2-week program. We had a program to Bali, Indonesia, Madrid, Spain, and then we had a program to Vienna, Austria. And all of these programs were open to all majors. Next year, 2023, we will have a program to Cape Town, South Africa, a program to Berlin, Germany, a program to Lisbon, Portugal, and a program to San Jose, Costa Rica. As you can see, we're pretty much all over the globe with our program selections, and you are free to select any program of your liking. Now, what do these programs entail? All right, what are you going to be doing? I will tell you that these are experiential programs. So in other words, you're going to be out traveling, exploring the culture, really getting engaged and immersing yourself within what the country and its culture has to offer. These programs are not designed to keep you in a traditional brick and mortar setting, traditional classroom, which there's nothing wrong with that, but we want you to get out, right? I had a student tell me who went to Germany a couple years ago, said when she was on that study abroad trip, it felt like they literally took the text out of the textbook and she experienced it herself. It was that magical, that rewarding. So there are multiple field trips that you would be participating in. There's so many, like for example, for South Africa, there's uh, a District 6 museum trip, a lion sanctuary trip, a small Serengeti tour. While you are in Germany, there are multiple museums and multiple museums and cultural fairs, food fairs, everything related to German culture in Berlin that you would be focusing on, and so on. With these programs, so in the summer specifically, you will take 1 to 2 courses, depending on how the program is set up. Most programs will have you take 2 courses. And one of the benefits out of the many is that these courses are upper division GEs, which is why we're able to offer it to all majors, because every student on campus has to take GEs at some point during their college tenure. So while you are abroad, you will be able to earn upper division GEs and or elective credit with courses that you may need to graduate. These courses, although there are 2 courses per program, it might feel that you're taking one because they're intertwined within each other, right? Because it's a whole holistic experience. So you're not going to feel like you're taking one class and then you're taking another. Each course will have its own set of field trips, but it will almost feel like you're taking them together, as you are there exploring whatever city or region you are in that country. Now, our London program, it's very similar. It's just longer, right? Instead of taking 1 to 2 classes, you would actually enroll in a minimum of 4 courses, right? So that you would be considered a full-time student for the duration of the spring semester. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can also intern while you are there, and that internship would replace a course. So, for example, we have our London program for next spring, the application is up now. So if anyone is interested, please reach out to me and I will get you to the application. There's an HSS 350 course, which is British Life and Culture. And that course comprises of, as well, multiple cultural field trips, community engagement activities, and cultural immersion activities as well. Then there's an art course, and then there's a liberal studies course. There are 2 journalism courses, and then of course the internship. And that internship can replace any of the courses so that you can have a full-time schedule. So it's completely up to you. Now, you might be wondering, and this is where I'm going to segue into our Cal State DC program. Why would I want to intern, right? Is this going to take away from my experience? If I must speak confidently, absolutely not. The internship is great because this will allow you to gain the experience and the exposure that you may need or want in order to be a competitive candidate in the workforce, right? So if you are in a position where you are already thinking about your career, you have an idea of what you would like to do after graduation, trust me, a lot of employers are looking already for internship experience or, that type of thing on your CV or resume. And, if you already have that, which, many candidates won't, you would, be that much more successful, or the potential would be greater, right? Also, by interning while you are abroad or in the States, you would be able to create and gain professional relationships, right? Because you'll have access to that information. Now, even if you are in a situation where you're not doing exactly what you want to do, right? Or you're kind of shadowing somebody, you would at least have the exposure, which is also a key thing. Now, this is where I'd like to segue into our Cal State DC Ski Scholars Program. This is also a great program for those who are thinking of their careers and who are also thinking about building professional connections or relationships, networking, so that you can catapult yourself to the next level. One thing that's great about the DC program, not only is it here in the States, you don't have to travel abroad if you're not comfortable doing that yet, but also it is in our nation's capital, right, which is a place everyone should strive to visit at some point in your life, right, Washington, D.C. This program takes place in the spring and the summer. So if a spring endeavor is too long, it's too extensive for you because you work or you have a family or you're just not comfortable taking that much time away from home, then a summer endeavor could possibly work, which is it's a 6-week program. Similar to our study abroad programs, you will also take a set of classes. The courses do vary, but from what I understand, some of the courses could be related to political science. I know there's an internship course, 2 internship courses that you're going to take, and overall, any other courses that are connected to the program are going to be connected to the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, and these are going to be upper division courses. All of them may not be GE courses, but usually at least one course is an upper division GE course. And then as well, you would be interning. Your housing is already established for you, so you don't have to try to set that up, because I do understand that could be sometimes a difficult task to do if you're not familiar with the metropolitan area of DC, or if you're not, familiar with the layout. Rest assured, we set that up for you. There are also a few, day trips that are connected to the program, different tours that are connected to the program as well, that you would be doing a part of each class. But again, ultimately, it's that internship that I really like to focus on, because that's what this program revolves around. This is the Cal State DC program. It's a staple program. It's been running for years now. It's a very popular program that attracts a lot of attention from students across campus. And, even if you decide not to study abroad, but you'd like to do some type of experiential activity, the Cal State DC Scholars Program is a program I highly recommend. With that said, that pretty much sums up the bulk of how our experiential learning programs function in this college. See if there's some things. I will go ahead and add my contact information in the chat. So if anyone is interested, please send me an email. We can meet via Zoom or in person, whatever modality works best for you. With that said, does anyone have any questions?
I wanted to add something.
Yes.
So I wanted to clarify on the DC Scholars Program. Some of you may think this is for people that are interested in politics. And that's certainly a part of it. But the important thing about DC is that you can find an internship on almost any issue, because anyone who wants to make sure that their particular issue or concern is considered in national policy making has a representation in Washington, D.C. So if you are interested in teaching, the National Educational Association, the teachers unions have offices in Washington, D.C. If you are into environmental issues, these are the good lobbyists, right? Greenpeace or World Wildlife Fund, they are all in Washington, D.C. If you're interested in mechanical engineering, mechanical engineers have their representation in Washington, D.C. So you don't have to think of the DC internship as sort of trying to schmooze with people in Congress. In fact, the internships that give you less glam but more work experience are those in federal agencies. And federal government does, as you may know, lots of things. So whether this is about culture, education, commerce, or international affairs, in state agencies is where you can find internships that really let you do work. And I will add this other thing, in a spring internship, you are there and I believe you get 6 units of internship credit, because you're there for 16 weeks and you work for 16 weeks. And if you are familiar with other internships where you maybe are there for 4 or 5 weeks, you will be held, there's a chance that people, if they don't really want you to get involved, they can keep you at the coffee machine, at the copier, but not for 16 weeks. In 16 weeks, interns really gain responsibilities. And the number of people who got jobs out of their spring DC Scholars experience is phenomenally high. It's a matter of choice. Do you then want the job or not? For most people, that's how it works out.
Thank you. Well said.
I think that's actually what Thomas relates to, right? Yeah. So, Tom, so the Smithsonian it's competitive, but it's certainly an opportunity. The Smithsonian, for example, also offers remote online internships right now. So this is something that you can do even without the DC scholarship. But Washington DC and the area has so many museums. So if you want to do some research on museums where you might want to, learn some skills and develop an experience, don't just look for the big names, also look sometimes for the small ones where they say, hey, we're really glad to have you because we lack the manpower. So you got to do things, and you got to do things that, maybe in other institutions, they would not hand to you. So smaller places can be better. For an English and philosophy major, if you're interested in politics, that certainly works. If you just want to work in writing, and then what's the subject that you most want to be competent in as a writer? One of my former students, he works in the writing office in the White House. They have interns. So it's really for you to there decide where you want to go with this. And for English and philosophy, there's endless possibilities. But if your question is whether you choose DC Scholars or study abroad, I wouldn't be able to choose. I don't know, because I would try to do both. You guys must have other questions for JC. JC, can you tell us something about the price range? This is not all free, right?
Absolutely. So it just depends on the program and the time of year, but to kind of give you a good estimate, so you have a good idea of what your financial responsibility could look like. So I'll start with our London program. The best way to understand what you're going to be paying for at its entirety is to break it up, the finances, into 4 components. The first component would be your program fee. Now, your program fee will cover basically all of your major expenses in London, such as your housing, which we also set up, your ground transportation. So while you're in London, you'll have access to their public transportation for the duration of the program within zones 1, 2, and 3. This would include the tube, which is like a subway, they refer to as a tube, the train, and their day and night buses. That's what transportation would include. The program fee also pays for all of your field trips, excursions, and international travel insurance, and of course, group meals. That's what the program fee is. That's number 1. Number 2 would be your tuition. So your regular CSUF spring tuition, it does not change. It remains the same. So if you do receive financial aid or any type of financial support to pay for your tuition, then it would cover that. Number 3, your round trip airfare. On average, round trip airfare to London is about $1,000. And of course, it depends on when you book it, but on average, about $1,000. And then finally, your pocket money. This would be your expenses, your daily expenses, like your daily meals, money you need to live or to feed yourself, I should say. And that amount, it's contingent on what you feel comfortable bringing. I do know students who had averaged about budgeted $500 a month. So for 3 months, that was $1,500. In my opinion, I think that's a little bit on the low end. I would say, you probably want to budget about $800 to $1,000 a month. So let's just say $3,000 in your own, living expenses, which would cover your meals. Now, back to the program fee. Generally, the program fee for London is about $8,000. Again, that covers your housing for 3 months, your ground transportation, your field trips, group meals, and international travel insurance, $8,000. Well, the college and faculty, and we understand that it can get kind of expensive, right? So with that said, every year the faculty and the college applies for funding to help reduce the cost of these programs so that they're more affordable for you. So for example, right now, the London program is actually about $6,000. Since I've been working with this program, the program fee has never been that low. And it has nothing to do with the value of the program or anything like that. It's just us understanding, it can get kind of expensive, and we want to do, or I'm taking credit for it like I'm the one doing it. It's actually the faculty and the college. They want to do anything they can do to help reduce the program fee so that these are more affordable for you. So back to the program fee for London. Right now, it's estimated at about $6,000 for the entire program. Okay, that's the program fee. Now, our summer programs are cheaper, and that's because it's the duration, right? Whereas London is a 3-month program, our summer programs are about a month, sometimes less. So same way the way I had mentioned how you should break up your expenses, the same thing you should do for your summer programs. Break it up into 4 pieces: program fee, your airfare, personal expenses, and your tuition. Okay, so let's start with the program fee. Generally, on average, a program fee for a summer program can be anywhere between $2,500 to $3,500. That is, again, covers your housing, ground transportation, field trips, group meals, and travel insurance. The $2,500 to $3,500, that's about normal, right, for the program. And then again, it depends on your location. Usually our European destinations are a little more expensive because the cost of living is a little more expensive. So like, for example, our program to Berlin, Germany is probably going to be a little over $3,000. Our Costa Rica program would probably be a little under $3,000, right? So, anywhere between that $2,500 to $3,500 range. Now, back to funding. The faculty and the college also applies for funding for our summer programs. So as of right now, we're still waiting for official proposals so that we will have more concrete numbers. And with that information, we'll be able to determine what the final program fee is going to be. But I would imagine, whatever the initial program fee is, there's probably going to be about a 30 to 50% reduction. So if a program is initially, $3,000, that program fee could potentially get down to $1,500. Now, just to show you that, illustrate that I'm not just, throwing things out, just random information, based on my own opinion or my own thoughts. We had a program, as I mentioned, to Bali, Indonesia, that ran this summer. The initial program fee was $2,500, right? So it was within that $2,500 to $3,500 range that I mentioned. Well, the program fee was initially $2,500. The faculty was awarded funding, and the college also applied funding towards the program to reduce the fee, and the fee was reduced to $500 per student.
And can I just say that is for how many weeks in Bali? 6 weeks?
Yeah, 4.
4 weeks. So I just want to say that if you were a backpacker on your own, living as cheaply and scummily as possible, you couldn't do it on that money. And I'm telling you this because I was a backpacker who lived as cheaply and scummily in Indonesia, and that is an unbeatable price. So you need to make sure that when you look at these numbers and you get a sticker shock, you need to remember what you're getting for it. 5 weeks in Berlin. If you were to ever spend 5 weeks in Berlin, you would spend more. Under any circumstances, you would spend more. So this doesn't undo the cost, but you need to remember what you get in proportion. Now, as to what you're getting for this, may I quickly point to a question here? Someone asked, can you live on your own, like with family? So what are the housing arrangements in study abroad? And then maybe also you can talk about housing arrangements in DC.
Absolutely. So for study abroad, it's case by case scenario. Usually the faculty and our providers who we work with would prefer students to live in the residence that has already been set up for you. So if, for example, Berlin, if there are apartments that they have set up for you, they would prefer that you live in the apartments. That's what they would prefer. However, again, back to the case by case, in some cases, I've actually seen it where students were allowed to live in their own housing accommodation. Usually European destinations like Germany, for example, there might be a little bit more flexibility to you living on your own as opposed to perhaps Costa Rica, right? They prefer that you live with your host family or wherever they have you set up. So I'm not going to rule it out. I'm not going to say a flat out no. It's more of, again, case by case. But if that's something you would be interested in doing because you have your own housing set up, maybe you have family or whatnot, please bring that up to me so that we can request that. And if it's granted, you will potentially save money, right? Because that's the housing expense that you wouldn't have to pay that's connected to the program. Now, for the CASE DC program, I know in the past, we did allow students to live on their own, right? If they had their own, Airbnb, or if they had family as well, or contacts to where they were able to live with them, we did allow that, right? So they weren't required to live in the student housing complex that we had already set up for you. I know that's how we did allow that. Now, as far as this spring and summer, I'm not sure if it's still allowed. Dr. Janssen, would you be able to answer that?
I don't actually. I don't know that. But I did want to follow up on the question regarding family. Do students typically live? They're not usually housed with families, right? So there's no host families, but rather you're finding accommodations where students maybe have like dorm-like situations?
Depends on the program. So far there are 2 programs that offers homestays. So you will be living with a family. So like our London program, you can either live in a homestay, so you would be living with a family, or an apartment. Our upcoming Costa Rica program, the way we are building it, students will be living with a host family. Yes.
All right. Are there any other questions? Is there an application link that you can share in the chat, JC?
Absolutely. So I did share the link to the website, to our Study Abroad website. And when you go there, you'll see some outdated information. As again, we're still building our summer 2023 programs. So you're not going to see those programs up yet. Hopefully they'll be up in a couple weeks. But as of right now, our 2023 London application is up, or I'm sorry, information and the application is up. So when you go to the website, you will be able to access information about that program and also the application. Again, once we have our summer 2023 program information available, you will also be able to access information per program, and there will be a link to the application. And again, I did upload the link to the website, and I will repost it in the chat for those of you who missed it.
Thank you. And we got one more question here about a cost estimate for DC.
So again, it depends on the time of year, and the bulk of your expense would be your housing, right? So in the spring, your housing is more expensive than what your housing would cost in the summer. So on average, I'd say in the spring, spring could be about $7,000 for housing, right? And that's, if you think about it mathematically, let's see, DC is not, it's metropolitan area. It can be pretty expensive to live in DC, right?
Yeah.
The dorms that are set up, at least how they were historically set up, these dorms were shared dorm style lodging accommodations. You'd had access to a kitchen, shared living area, fully furnished. Um, all of your utilities, of course, are paid for and whatnot. Now in the summer, you can split that in half. So about $3,000 to $3,500. Now back to the funding, I failed to mention this about the Cal State DC Scholars Program. The faculty and the director also applies for funding to help reduce the cost. So don't be surprised if the program fee in the spring, for example, for the DC program was, let's say initially $7,000, and all of a sudden you've seen it drop to about $5,000.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've seen historically. Go ahead, Dr. Johnson. Did you have?
I remember when I did the DC program in spring 2018, the cost ultimately went down to, I think, $4,700. And
that's the spring, right?
Yeah, in spring.
Yes.
And I visited students in one of the apartments. So they had a 3-room apartment, and I think there were 3 to a room. It felt like a busy place, but it didn't feel destitute or decrepit. The housing was quite decent. The furniture was decent, and it looked like they were quite happy in that arrangement. So it's you need to remember when you're here, that you're going to share a room, that ultimately this is about an experience that takes place mostly outside of your residence. You'll be at work, you'll be out on the street, you'll be doing events, and you'll be all over the city. So you'll have time to sleep, but that's about it. And I just wanted to, before you guys leave, I wanted to tell you that I finished my own application for Berlin for 2024, and JC said, it's so many things actually taught out on site. I have not a single day in this class where we are sitting anywhere doing a reading and having a discussion. So it's a river cruise, it's a castle visit, it's a brew pub or a beer garden, okay, if you know what I mean. It's visiting the Reichstag, it's visiting a university, it's taking a biking tour, a walking tour, a Jewish history museum. We're meeting an old professor of mine from my time there. We're visiting, we're going to a theater show. We're meeting people that live in the mostly Turkish neighborhood of Kreuzberg. We're meeting students at a high school. We're meeting old people that lived through the East German days. We're meeting people that remember the building of the wall. We're meeting, I'm hoping, Ukraine war refugees. So a day trip to Dresden. So there's not a day where we just sort of sit and study. It doesn't happen. Right, and we are over time now. And if there's no other questions, I don't want to ask JC to be here longer than I promised we would do. Okay. Listen, if you have more questions, you have JC's email. You know how to find me. This is not the only time we will talk about it. I will, as I threatened, I will throw this at you again and again. I've made all these little videos of my students in DC, and I will share those on Canvas. I also have a video back from the time in Berlin that'll give you a bit of a taste, and I will share that with you as well. All right. Thank you, JC, for taking the time.
Absolutely.
And,
thank you for the invite, sir.
I'm hoping you're getting some traffic.
Oh yeah, we're staying busy here.
Okay. Have a
Same
good evening.
for you. You too. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.